The St. Louis Blues are looking a lot better than I thought they would during their third preseason game. And who has surprised me the most? This is all coming up here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked on Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked on Blues. I am your host, Haley Taylor Simon, here a part of the Locked on Podcast Network. I have to tell you, I have to give myself some credit. I slept through the entirety of today. Let me take you back. So last night, if you watched yesterday's episode of Locked on Blues, I had to be at the radio station until a little bit late. And then I had to go back very early this morning, so I didn't sleep. I took full advantage after work today and I slept. But right now, as I am filming this, it is the first intermission of the Blues and Blue Jackets game. And I can tell you off the bat, before we get into today's episode, I'm clearly happy with how things are going. So I'm timing this out correctly to where my episode, I will be done recording it by the time the second period begins. And then for you, you can watch this during the second intermission. See what I do there? I make it easy for all of us here on Locked on Blues. In today's episode, I will be talking about that third preseason game against the Blue Jackets taking place right now. So some live in-game updates and then standouts during camp. Who has surprised me and who hasn't really surprised me? And then finally, my hope level has gone up. I know. I didn't think I would ever say that, but yes, my hope level has gone up for the St. Louis Blues. Before we get into the rest of today's episode, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right. What is going on with your St. Louis Blues right now, and why am I so impressed? Well, it's because the St. Louis Blues took a 3-1 lead after 20 minutes against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Jacob Vanra started off the scoring, giving the Blues a 1-0 lead, and it happened right off the face-off. And this is the type of play that you want to see. This happened around the 11-minute, not 11-minute marker. It was 11 minutes left. Math hail, about 9 minutes into the first period. And then, unfortunately, Bemstrom from the Blue Jackets ties it 1-1. But the St. Louis Blues, they come back because Mr. Brandon Saad is able to give the Blues a 2-1 lead. Oh, actually, the box score says the goal is being credited to Isaac Ratcliffe, who is also, fun fact, on a professional tryout. He is somebody that I talked about that I was a little disappointed in his playing in the second game during that first day of preseason. It was confusing because there was two games, but the nighttime game, he did, have a fighting minor. He did definitely show some passion, but in terms of his playmaking, it wasn't the best. So I'm glad that he was able to step it up tonight. And then our boy who is back, Oscar Sonny, he was able to enhance the Blues lead 3-1. This is obviously very good for the St. Louis Blues, as the Columbus Blue Jackets are not the best team. And I had to also say neither are the Arizona Coyotes. But during preseason, you're having guys that wouldn't be on the final roster play just so you can give them that experience and see what works, what doesn't work. So the Columbus Blue Jackets are not good. Okay. But it's also good practice for the Blues to, enhance their confidence level on the ice. I think when it comes to the St. Louis Blues, the number one concern that I have is the defense and that blue line. But when you put them against a team that is also struggling, it allows you to kind of see, okay, this actually could be beneficial in terms of their power play has been actually really nice, the St. Louis Blues. I think the Blues have done a better job than people will give them credit for. I have to say, when it comes to the Blues and why I am cautiously optimistic, it is because I like what I am seeing so far. And I also want to note that Sonny getting that goal tonight from Richie, it was on the power play. So I did say that this Blues team has utilized the power play. They have been doing a lot better during the PP, the power play. And I guess that to me is a sign of hope because that was something that the Blues, they didn't do an awful job with last season, but it also could have been something that could have used some more improvement. But the one thing that I'm also liking that I'm seeing a lot is that Oscar Sundqvist, who the Blues acquired again, we missed him here in St. Louis. He has been such a standout to me. And I'll talk more about that in the next segment, but his playmaking has been very on point. I think this game right now, and I said that this game matters, it's because you're going to be taking a look at different players that could be cut. Cuts are coming soon. That's inevitable. You're not going to be able to have 57 guys make it. But for the Blues tonight, and just to give you guys who the starting lineup was, the starters, it's Shen, and then winged by Ratcliffe and Sad, and then Letty and Scandella, and then Annette Binner. So definitely a little bit different than the first set of games where more things were kind of sporadic. What's that word? Sporadic, where it was all kind of random. Now, when it comes to the regular season, you're never going to see Shen have Ratcliffe or Sad wing him. But as I was saying, this is to see if these guys are adaptable. And with Braden Shen being the captain of the St. Louis Blues, it is important for his leadership to kind of make a difference to these younger players, if that makes sense. So, for instance, a Ratcliffe who is on a professional tryout, putting him in the same line as Shen, it allows you to see if Ratcliffe can keep up with one of the best players on the team. And I think it's going to be a true test. I love me some Nicoletti. I think that he is such a great defender. So watching him has been fun. And then obviously our boy Binner and net. When you have one, and I've said this before, and it's because of the defense, I truly think that he is one of the top 10 goalies in the league. And I know some people may not agree with me. You're probably on a different opposing team. But the one aspect of tonight's game is that for some reason, Sundqvist has been driving the puck down and Ratcliffe has been doing the same. And I think that was a shock to some people because this offseason, I said the Blues really didn't do anything significant, and I truly will stand by that statement. But maybe getting back Oscar, maybe, getting Ratcliffe in that deal with Kevin Hayes could have been the best thing for the St. Louis Blues because they bring something to the ice. And it looks like they're winning more puck battles and drawing some more plays. And I don't know if it's just because the Blue Jackets suck. It could just be that. But it's definitely something that has me a little bit excited. So another little update. Kasper Kapanen, it says upper body injury is not in tonight's lineup. I think it's because of the slash from the last game. I'm not sure. I am speculating, but it's just like a little suspicious about that whole situation. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But so far, I like what I'm seeing in tonight's game. I feel like this Blues team just looks fast. They look confident, and they're definitely having some good spacing on the ice, which is something that they also missed. While I'm saying a lot of positives, it's hard to say a lot of negatives right now because they did have such a great 20 minutes on ice right away. So far, I like what I'm seeing. They're having a good game, and hopefully it stays that way. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than now to get on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I want to say that FanDuel does offer quite a bit, and I actually was talking to my friend today. I used to bet Russian table tennis, the Moscow Lingo poll, and FanDuel just has like a bunch of random sports that you can bet on during all hours of the day. I know. But it is funny, but it is true. FanDuel does have a lot. So I always love my friends over at FanDuel. All right, standouts during camp. And kind of just talking about some things that have happened at camp. This is from Jeremy Rutherford about some quotes that Torey Krug said today. This was his first time speaking out about the no trade clause of Philadelphia this summer, and I'm going to read you what Krug said. Obviously, I chose to stay here. I want to be a part of this room, and I love playing in this city and wearing the blue note. So it's something I'm very excited about. You don't like hearing things like that. I have kids. I have a family, but I want to be here and wear the note. Right off the bat, one thing that I have to say is immediately when he said, I have kids, I have a family, I said that. He does not want to move. And when you have a family, you probably, I don't know, I don't have like a family like that. I have a cat, but it's probably very difficult to relocate. So I understand. And again, he earned that right. Krug goes on to say, I'm here to play hockey. I signed up to be in St. Louis for 7 years, and that's what I want to do. When you hear stuff like that, there's more that goes into it than what's on the surface at the end of the day. I want to be here, so that's all I can really say. Again, as I was saying, he doesn't want to leave St. Louis. And this is why this whole summer and this whole, Torey Krug is being drama. No, he was not. He had an NTC for a reason because he wanted to stay with the St. Louis Blues. And if you think any differently, if you think it's being dramatic, if you think that he was asking too much, it's not. That's his right, and he wanted to stay with St. Louis. So that's what he's going to do. Krug goes on to say, and this is about the team that tried to trade him. I've seen everything in hockey, just about everything you can think of. If you know anything about me or my history, you know I'm going to show up and go to work every day. I think my teammates understand and expect that. This to me, it does sound a little defensive, but I do understand. This summer, this was one of the biggest stories in the National Hockey League was about Torey Krug and not waiving his no trade clause to go to Philadelphia. I respect him so much, and I've always respected Torey Krug, and I think that he is one of those guys that's been around the league, as he stated, for quite a while. And while it might sound a little defensive, it's probably very frustrating having all these things being said about you, all these speculations, before you can even comment on what exactly was going on. He wanted to stay here, and I think that's what's most important, is that he wants to continue to wear the blue note. While he may not have said a lot, he may not have given you, as people like to call it these days, the tea. I think that him reiterating, I want to be with St. Louis. This is the city I want to be in. I want to wear the blue note. They're all testimonies to the fact that he is still passionate about being a St. Louis Blue. And I think as a fan base, as a city, as a hockey city, it's accepting that and supporting him. And October 1st falls on Sunday, and that's when his foot will be evaluated. He has been at camp doing some, light work on the ice. but hopefully he will be able to play once the regular season begins. I personally would love to see him play at least in one preseason game. That way he can get some time on the ice and practice before this season begins. And I think that supporting him and just being a good fan base for him is what the Blues need to do for Torey. And this was a standout moment at camp. I was not expecting him to comment whatsoever on the situation, but he did. And I respect it quite a bit. All right, so the St. Louis Blues are back in the second period, and Malcolm Subban will take over in the net for the Blues. A little in-game update. These are kind of fun, a little in-game update going on Locked On Blues. All right. So for those that are not following on Twitter, make sure to follow at Locked On Blues or my own Twitter at Haley T. Simon. And if you're on YouTube seeing this right now, hello, how are you? Do you like my little custom shirt? It's a tie-dye St. Louis Blue shirt. Make sure you follow, subscribe, my everydayers, and you know to leave those comments. That way we can have some conversations and talk about the season. But I was just taken back by Torey Krug today. And I hope you understand my reasoning why. I mean, this whole drama over the summer was just so infuriating. And it's nice to hear Torey Krug finally just letting it be known, hey, I want to be here. So good for Torey. And that was my thoughts on that. As I said, I always like to respond to my everydayers comments because it is important for you and I to talk one-on-one when it comes to the St. Louis Blues. So MT Hockey says, after the debacle of the Cardinals baseball season, the Blues front office's actions are not stirring the confidence of St. Louis fans. This is not going to be a much better year for the Blues. Rather, it's going to be a year that will set up decisions for the future. Hopefully, it will be somewhat entertaining. What I would like to say about that is this. While the office didn't really set up the season to be uber successful, I have been impressed what I've seen during preseason, which is why, as the segment says, my hope level has gone up. This offseason, I was disappointed. I think more could have been done and more should have been done 110 million%. But right now, I am going to remain as positive as I can be about this team because they have not given me a reason yet to be so concerned. Now, when the regular season hits and they start off to like an 0-4 record, I would be concerned. But right now, this is looking like decent hockey. And it will be entertaining because the St. Louis Blues never fail to entertain me. No matter what happens on the ice. It could be frustration. It could be anything. They never fail to entertain me. Steve says, hope you were more than right. And I hope so too. This is one of those seasons where I want to be right and I like to be right. But not just for me, but for you, for my first season doing Locked On Blues, I want it to be a somewhat successful season where I can install some of that positivity. But at the end of the day, the Blues do have an uphill battle. They do have some great prospects, a lot of young guys. You know, when Dvorsky is able to play here, that will be a huge benefit, but that will take a couple years. So I'm hoping between the time, now and then, there will be at least some good hockey. And then finally, Warren says, hey, Haley, I'm with you. They're going to have a great season and a good choice of a captain too. I watch all of your videos. Keep up the good work. And thank you so much. I appreciate that. This season, I'm not going to say it's going to be the best season. It's not going to be a good season, but it's going to be better than last season. And after last season, you can only go up. And actually, no, you could go down, but I'm hoping that's not the case. I think right now there has been a disconnect between the players and Berube. There's been a lot of things that haven't really been connecting when it comes to the Blues. And I think that this season is a time to take full advantage of tying the gaps, right? and making those changes and hopefully installing a winning mentality. The St. Louis Blues are in an interesting position because they're not awful in terms of talent on paper. It's just for whatever reason, they just didn't play to their full potential last season. And if they do have a good season this year, then it could have just been that last season was a fluke season. But at the same time, their defense doesn't strike me as a defense that will withhold better offensive teams in this league. For instance, the Carolina Hurricanes, they have a really strong offense. I know, completely different division. I know, but that was the first thing that came to my head when I thought of a good offense. I could not see the Blues defense doing well against their offense. And that's what's a little concerning, is that I have to think that way, because if I'm just thinking, oh, okay, if they play against bad teams in the NHL, that's a bad mentality, because any team that's a somewhat decent team can do well against bad teams. But when you think of the good teams, those are the teams that you want to put up a fight with, because when it comes to the postseason, those will be the teams that you will be playing. I don't think anyone's looking at the Boston Bruins, a team that we actually formerly beat in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I will always bring that up because that was one of the best days of my life. We won Blue Day. But when you think of their offense, you do think of a fast-paced offense. And then think about how that offense would go up against this current Blues defense. Not good. So I want the Blues to get back to a place, make some trades during the season if you can. As I've stated, getting solid defenders to this team is the most important priority. Offense, you're fine. Obviously, in net, you have Binner, you have Hoffer, Subban's actually doing decent. You have the goalies. It's the defense that I think needs the tender loving care, the TLC, as some might say. So that would be my focus, my priority if I was Doug Armstrong or any of the higher-ups, because that honestly determines the season. If you don't have solid defense, then your season is basically done, because this is a very much so defensive league. And again, it's not fair for Benner. It's not fair for whoever is in net when you don't have a defense that's able to put up a fight, because then that goalie is basically just going to struggle. And goalies, it's interesting. They're the one player on ice that has, I think, the most I'm trying to think of how to word this. I guess it's like they have mental blocks, or it's a lot of stuff in their head because it's such a position of focus. So for instance, last season, it's not Binner's fault, but just think about how that took a toll on him, mentally, in a sense that every game he was being dominated. And it's not his fault because he didn't have a defense to help protect him. You cannot rely on your goalie to make every defensive play. And I said what I said. So this was a fun episode of Locked On Blues. I'm going to get back to watching some Blues hockey. And tomorrow, I'm going to digest the entire game with you all. But I wanted to talk about that riveting first period because I did like what I saw. Again, how I end every single episode, let's go Blues.